We begin today the Gemara at the Mishnah on Daf Lamed Vav and Lamed Beis. Sagt Heilige Mishnah, Kol mitzvah shi tluya ba'aretz, those mitzvahs that are dependent in the land in Eretz Yisrael, ein in a heges ele ba'aretz. So those mitzvahs are only fulfilled in Eretz Yisrael. B'shein tluya ba'aretz, the mitzvahs that are not dependent on the land, neheges bein ba'aretz, bein v'chutz la'aretz. They are obligated and fulfilled in Eretz Yisrael and out of Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara will explain exactly how we divide this category. Chutz says the Tana here, however, this is an exception here, except mina arla uklayim. The Isser of arla, the first 3 years that the tree grows is arla, and kalayim, when you mix different species, for example, you mix a vineyard, kerem, with chita. So those Yisurim are not only in Eretz Yisrael, it's in Chutz La'aretz as well. We'll see, there's a few opinions in the Gemara why and how it's learned out. Rabbi Eliezer says, fa-chodosh. The mitzvah of Chadash, or the Isser of Chadash, that you don't eat from the new produce of the year, from the new grain, from the chitim, sa'irim, until you bring the carbon on the second day of Pesach, the carbon ma'omer, then you can eat from the new season. So this Isser, we'll see in the Gemara how it learns Rabbi Eliezer's opinion, what Rabbi Eliezer meant by Afa Chadash. But the point is, there's a machlokes here in the Mishnah, whether the Isser of Chadash is applicable in Chutz La'aretz or only in Eretz Yisrael. There's a huge arichas about this in Rishonim and in Paiskim regarding Chodesh B'zman Hazeh and Chutz La'aretz. If you see here in the end of Lamed Vav and Beis, there's a long Taisvis, and part of the discussion in Taisvis is also regarding the Isser of Chodesh. And all the Paiskim write to be Malamet Chos on the minig that was prevalent in Europe and even till many years ago, not too long ago, that people were not makpid on the Isser of Chodesh and Chutz La'aretz. Now, as we'll learn in the continuation of the Gemara, there are many opinions of Tanaim, and there are opinions of Rishonim as well, that paskin that the Isser of Chodesh is in Chutz La'aretz. So why is the prevalent custom not to be noyeg in the Isser of Chodesh? So based on the Taisvis here, the Bach says that the Isser of Chodesh does not apply when it comes from a goy, what grows by a goy. So the grain that we have are growing by goyim, so therefore it doesn't apply. Another heter is that the Isser of Chodesh is not in a situation where it's not 100% clear that it's from the new season, from after the carbon omer from last year. It could be if it's a suffix, if it was from the previous season or the season after the carbon omer was brought, so then the Isser of Chodesh does not apply. It's another limud chos for people that are not noyeg in Chodesh. There's a tshuva from the Tzemach Tzedek, Barichas, about this, also in Yeridea, where he speaks about this Barichas. He also brings from the Alter Rebbe, that the Alter Rebbe was malamet chos. The Rebbe also mentioned it, that people are not noyeg in Chodesh. But I think in the last 10, 20 years, he used to go to the store and he used to say, this is Yoshan, this is whatever, but not anymore. You don't see it anymore. Basically now, they just bring everything in. There's enough from the older season that it's just all the Yiddish companies just bring in from the older season, and you won't find really anymore any stores writing whether it's Yashan or not Yashan, I believe. They still exist such a thing? What?
People go crazy.
Yeah, it's Yashan or not. Okay, maybe. Okay, Zok the Gemara. So the Kidushin, it's not really connected to Kidushin, but because it spoke before about the mitzvahs that Noshim are chayv and Noshim are not chayv, which was connected to the Masechta, speaking about Ha'isha Niknes. So now it brings these mitzvahs, which are in Eretz Yisrael, which are in Chutz La'aretz. Zok the Gemara, how do we understand what the Mishnah means? My tluya, my sheina tluya. What does it mean when it says those mitzvahs that are dependent on the land and those that are not? Ilay mitluya, this tluya based on what it says in the pasuk. The chsiv ba biyah. Those psukim, those mitzvahs that it says in it, the expression of biyah, that you do it when you come to Eretz Yisrael, and Rashi gives examples. It says ki savayu, ki viyacha. So that's what means tluya baretz. Misha'enet tluya delek siv ba biyah. When it says it's not tluya means also the lashon of the pasuk. It did not say in the pasuk biyah that you come to Eretz Yisrael, but that can be the pshat because v'harei tefillin upetach hamayr, tefillin and petach hamayr are two mitzvahs. The chsiv ben biyah, the Torah writes the lashon of biyah, ki viyacha. V'noigim bein ba'aretz and bein b'chutz la'aretz, and these are mitzvahs that are fulfilled, and we have the obligation both in Eretz Yisrael and out of Eretz Yisrael. How do we know that they're both noig in Eretz Yisrael and out of Eretz Yisrael? So regarding tefillin, Rashi says that we see the Rabbanan, the Amirayim in Bavel, they put on tefillin. Regarding Petach HaMoyer, Rashi says that the Torah says, Yechai for Peterechem, so that's even a Chutz La'aretz. But that part in Rashi is in parentheses. Some Rishonim erased that because it's not clear how that's a proof, because the Torah says ki v'yacha here. It's also interesting that Rashi says that the proof for tefillin is because we see that the Rabbanan put on tefillin a chutz la'aretz. So some Tosfos asks them that maybe they only put on tefillin mid Rabbanan. Maybe there's no chiv min Torah to put on tefillin a chutz la'aretz. Tosfos says it can't be because in the Mishnah when it says chutz min arla klayim, so according to one opinion, the Gemara, the chiyuv of klayim chutz la'aretz is also only mid Rabbanan. So it's saying chutz. So the tefillin is if now the Gemara is saying the beginning of the Mishnah it refers to tefillin, it can't be similar to klayim. But it's interesting. Rashi says the raya is because we see the Amirayim put on tefillin or chutz la'aretz. Other Rishonim bring other rayas. Okay, so the Gemara says it can't be that the pshat in the Mishnah depends on the language of the pasuk. Amar Rav Yehuda, so Rav Yehuda says the pshat is as follows: Hachikama, kol mitzvah shihi chayves haguf, a mitzvah which is an obligation on the body. Noiheges bein baretz bein chutz la'aretz. That's a mitzvah that goes on both in Eretz Yisrael and chutz la'aretz. Chayvas karka, however, a mitzvah that's an obligation in the land, and in Eges Elabaretz. Those are the mitzvahs that you only fulfill, only goes in Eretz Yisrael. That's what the Mishnah meant when it said the term tuluya. Is it a chayva on the person or a chayva on the land? Anonymily, what's the source for this pshat in our Mishnah here? The Tana Rabbanan, because it says Nebraisa pasuk, it says Eila chukim. So the first beginning of the pasuk it says chukim. What are chukim? Eila and medrashis. This refers to different things that we darshan, that Chazal darshan from psukim. Ve'a mishpatim. Then the pasuk says mishpatim. What are they? Elu adinim. This refers to other dinim that are written clearly in the pasuk. Then it says asher tishmerun. Asher tishmerun means mishnah. The halachas that are taught in the mishnayos. Right? And then the pasuk says afterwards lasais zumaisa, that you fulfill. Once you learn the mishnayos, the halachas, then you can fulfill. Ba'aretz. This is all one long pasuk. Ela chukim mishpatim asher tishmerun lasais ba'aretz. So what does it mean, ba'aretz? I would think, kol mitzvahs kol na'yin hagem ela ba'aretz. You only fulfill all mitzvahs only in Eretz Yisrael. Talmud loymar kol hayomim asher atam chayim al adamim. Right afterwards, in the same pasuk, after it says ba'aretz, it says ba'aretz asher nasan Hashem elokei v'sechel l'chol l'rishta, and then it says kol hayom asher atam chayim al adamim. So it's mashma anywhere in any land that you live al adamim, you have to fulfill the mitzvahs. Now, so now the Brisa asks, so from the end of the pasuk it says, Kol hayomim, you always chayiv anywhere you are in the world. I would think that all mitzvahs apply in Eretz Yisrael and chutz la'aretz. So basically, you have a contradiction in the pasuk. So Talmud loyim ba'aretz. On the other hand, the pasuk says that the mitzvahs are to be fulfilled only in Eretz Yisrael. So now the question becomes, chasheriba akasov. Umiyit, since we see in the pasuk, on one hand the Torah is marbe. It says all over, wherever you live, ala adama. On the other hand, it's memayit. It says only in Eretz Yisrael. So how do we understand this pasuk? Say ulamad mimasham binyan. So you could learn out from what it says right over here in the very next pasuk in this inyan. What does it say? Abe ta'abdun es kol ha'mekaymes shasar avdu sham v'goymer, which is the avodah zarah, to get rid and to destroy avodah zarah. So right after it says kol hayom asher hatam chayim al adama, indicating that the mitzvahs are all over in the world, it says avodah zarah. From this I learn out as follows: Ma avodah zarah is a mitzvah or a lav which is not connected to the land, but it's a chayv on the person. And on this, the Torah is saying Allah Adama, that this is a mitzvah that's both in Eretz Yisrael and in chutz la'aretz. Av kol she chayves aguf neheges bein baretz bein chutz la'aretz. If it's a chayves aguf, the mitzvah is both in Eretz Yisrael and out of Eretz Yisrael. This is the source, and then from there we understand that when it says ba'aretz, it only refers to those mitzvahs which are chayves karka, that you fulfill it in the land, in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, then the Mishnah said, chutz min arla v'kalayim. Arla and kalayim is not like the rest of mitzvahs which are chayves karka. Their Isser applies in chutz la'aretz as well. And then the main thing the Gemara is going to focus on is the hemshcha the Mishnah that it said, Rabbi Eliezer oime afa chodosh. Chodosh as well. So here, the Gemara has two ways how to understand what exactly Rabbi Eliezer was arguing with the Tanna Kama. Yibayalu the Shailu was asked, Rabbi Eliezer l'kula polik. Is Rabbi Eliezer arguing and he's actually being more lenient than the Tanna Kama? The Gemara will explain how that could be. When you learn the simple pshat of the Mishnah, it looks like Rabbi Eliezer is coming to be a machmer, right? He's coming to add to the Tanna Kama. Tanna Kama says, Arla and Klaim and Noyeg all over, And Rabbi Eliezer is coming to say, Af HaChodesh is noyeg all over in Chutz La'aretz. But the Gemara says, no, you could interpret the Mishnah the opposite. As we'll see. Or Rabbi Eliezer is coming to be more stringent. The Chomre Polig, do I say, like we would understand the Mishnah simply, that he's coming to argue to be more stringent, and Vachikama. This is what Rabbi Eliezer is saying. Tanakame chutz min ha'arla u'min ha'kalayim. The Tanakame says that arla and kalayim are two isurim that apply in Chutz La'aretz, and that is the Hilchas Gemirila, because it's halacha l'Moshe Sinai that they apply in Chutz La'aretz. We'll see later in the Gemara that it brings, at least according to one opinion, that kalayim is not halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Kalayim is a isim d'Rabbanan. That's what the Tanakama says. Afal gav de karki. And the chiddush of the Tanakama was, even though these are two things connected to the land, but still it's naik all over in the world. Aval chodosh. However, the Tanakama's opinion is when it comes to the Isav chodosh ba'aretz in, that applies only in Eretz Yisrael, and b'chutz la'aretz not a chutz la'aretz, like the rest of the mitzvahs connected to the land. Now, my time, but the Gemara clarifies why is this so. Because Moshav, now here the Gemara is referring to the lashon of the pasuk in the mitzvah of Chodosh. It says there in the pasuk, Mi Mosh Veseichem Taviu. So when it says Mi Mosh Veseichem, from your dwellings, what does this mean? Mosh Veseichem means anywhere in the world, or Moshev means only in Eretz Yisrael. So the Gemara now says that Tanakama will explain that Moshav, when it says in the Torah, Mi Mosh Veseichem, regarding Chodosh, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anywhere where you live in the world, but rather it means La'acha Yerusha V'Yeshiva. It's adding the term Mosh Veseichem to say that the mitzvah of Chodosh applies not only after you come into Eretz Yisrael, but you have to wait actually until they conquered and they divided the whole land, right, which took 14 years. And so that's what the term Mosh Veseichem means. So it's only in Eretz Yisrael. Mashma, that's the pshat. That's the Tanakam. Also, Rabbi Eliezer lemeimar. On that, Rabbi Eliezer came and argued and said, "Av chodosh, chodosh is similar to arla and klayim. Noyeg bein baretz bein chutz la'aretz." So chodosh that is like arla and klayim, and the mitzvah applies both in Eretz Yisrael and chutz la'aretz. My timer. What's the reason for Rabbi Eliezer? He interprets Moshev differently. Moshev, when the Torah uses the term Moshev, it says Mosh Veseichem b'chol makom shatim yoshvim. What it's saying is that the mitzvah of chodosh applies anywhere where you live. That's the explanation of their machlekes. Perhaps we can flip their opinions and say that it's really the other way around. L'kula pali. Maybe Rabbi Eliezer is coming and arguing, and he's being more lenient. V'hachi ka'amar, and this is what Rabbi Eliezer is saying. Tanakame chutz min arla v'akalayim. The Tanakame says that arla and kalayim are an exception, and they're noig in chutz la'aretz. The Hilchase Gemiri law, it's halacha l'Moshe Sinai that it applies in chutz la'aretz. V'kol shekein chodosh. Now it's obvious and it's needless to say that chodosh, the Tanakama holds, is also a mitzvah that applies in chutz la'aretz. The Moshav, because the Tanakama holds that what does the term Mosh Veseichem mean? Kol makom shatim yeshvim mashma. It means wherever you live. So the Tanakama didn't even have to mention that Chodesh is noig in chutz la'aretz. That's what the way the Rishonim explained it. The Tanakama held that it's so obvious that that's a clear pasuk. So therefore it's in chutz la'aretz. And on that, Rabbi Eliezer lemeimar, Chodosh ein noig al ba'aretz. When Rabbi Eliezer said Af HaChodosh, he's coming to say that Chodosh is like the other things mentioned in the beginning, that it's only in Eretz Yisrael. Because the Moshav lach Yerusha V'Yeshiva mashma. When it says Mosh Veseichem, it doesn't mean wherever you live. It means in Eretz Yisrael, after you inherit the whole land, and after you dwell and they settle the entire land. Mashma. That's the pshat. So it's only in Eretz Yisrael. And now according to this pshat, my af, when Rabbi Eliezer says af akamaisa, goes to the beginning of the Mishnah, the rule that it says in the beginning of the Mishnah that if it's a chayva that's tluya ba'aretz, it's only in Eretz Yisrael, Rabbi Eliezer is saying that includes Chodesh as well. That's the shayla here. Tashema, so the Gemara says, I'll prove to you the pshat of the Mishnah, that the pshat is actually like we learned the simple pshat of the Mishnah, that Rabbi Eliezer is being machmer. The Amar Abaye, because Abaye said as follows: Man Tane the Polag Alei de Rabbi Eliezer. Who is the Tane that argues on Rabbi Eliezer? Rabbi Shmoli. This is Rabbi Shmuel that spoke about this term of the Torah when it uses the term Mosh Veseichem. What does it mean? Tanya, Rabbi Shmuel said as follows: L'lametcha. This comes to teach you. The term Mosh Veseichem comes to teach Shekol Makom Shenema by Moshav. Whenever the Torah uses the term Moshav, Einoi Ella Lacha Yerusha V'Yeshiva. It's not coming to say wherever you live in the world. It's coming to say in Eretz Yisrael, after they conquer the whole land and they settle the whole land. David Rabbi Shmuel, that's what Rabbi Shmuel holds. Now, we have to know the context of here, what Rabbi Shmuel was talking about. This is going to be relevant for the continuation of the Gemara. There's a long Rashi here, but the point that Rashi explains is that Rabbi Shmuel was talking about the mitzvah of Nesachim. So there in the parsha of Nesachim, it says, Ki savoyo alaretz meshviseichem vasisem isha lashem. So what does the term meshviseichem there mean? Says Rabbi Shmuel, meshviseichem means it has to be dafke in Eretz Yisrael, and dafke like in a place where they have a proper place where everyone can bring their karbanos, which is what's called a bamas tzibur. Right? There were certain times in Eretz Yisrael, mainly when the Yidden war in Gilgal, the first 14 years, when they had the Mishkan in Gilgal, they were still conquering the land, they were still settling. So then anybody could put up a bama in his backyard and bring a carbon there. But only a carbon yachid, you can't bring a carbon tzibur there. Now Rabbi Shmuel says, and he learns it from a pasuk, that nisachim, a yachid cannot bring any nisachim. Right? Only a tzibur could bring the sachem. So now here, when they came into Eretz Yisrael, and it says that you can bring Moish V'Seichem. What does Moish V'Seichem mean? Wherever you live, you can bring the sachem. No, you can't. A yachid can't bring the sachem wherever he lives. So Moish V'Seichem must be referring to the tzibur that brings it, and that's only in Eretz Yisrael when you have a proper bama, whether it's in Shiloh and then in Yerushalayim. And what the pasuk is saying is that the din of Nesachim only began to apply after they settled the land 100%, 14 years it took them. That's when the mitzvah begins. That's how Rabbi Shmuel teaches the pasuk, and he says, from here becomes a rule, since we have a proof regarding Nesachim, they can't mean wherever you dwell, because there is no mitzvah of Nesachim for every yachid if he brings a carbon. Nesachim must be only for the tzibur. So over here, Moshe V'Seichem means in Eretz Yisrael, after they settle the land. From here where you have a rule, anytime the Torah writes Moshe V'Seichem, it means in Eretz Yisrael, after they settle the land. And on that, Rabbi Kiva argues, Amalei Rabbi Kiva, again, it could be a bama, but it has to be a bama tzibur. Not as the bama tzibur is like a bama like a noiv, givain, shiloi, but it can't be every yachid. There's no nesachim when a yachid brings a carbon. And on that, Amalei Rabbi Kiva argues, and he says, no, Harei Shabbos, Shanema by Shabbos, by Shabbos. The pasuk by Shabbos in the Torah, it says, Lo Sivaru Eish, Over there it says the term Moish V'Seichem. Ve'noi Heges, the mitzvah of Shabbos is Bein Baris Bein B'chutz La'aretz, both in Eretz Yisrael and in Chutz La'aretz. So how could you make this rule and say that Moish V'Seichem all over means only in Eretz Yisrael? So basically, Rabbi Kiva is learning that when it says there by Moish V'Seichem, the term Moish V'Seichem, by Nesachim that is, so what does it mean? By every yachid. Every yachid could bring a carbon, nesachim, a carbon, and brings nesachim for his karbanis. And that's what the Torah is saying over here. And that's not only in Eretz Yisrael. B'chlal, wherever a person is, he puts up a bamas yachid, and you're also going to have to bring nesachim over there. Okay. That's the machlekes of here. So what does Rabbi Shmuel answer Rabbi Kiva? He brings a very strong raya from Shabbos. There you see that it's all over, even though it says the term Moish V'Seichem. So, Malay, Rabbi Shmuel answers Rabbi Kiva, Shabbos mikav v'choymasya. The fact that Shabbos there's a chiyuv to keep Shabbos all over in the world, that's a kav v'choyma. Because ma mitzvahs kalis. Other lighter mitzvahs than Shabbos. No yeg is bein baras bein b'chutz la'aretz. It applies both in Eretz Yisrael and in chutz la'aretz. Shabbos chamira. So Shabbos, which is a very severe, very important mitzvah, lekol shekain. Most definitely, this is a mitzvah that applies both in Eretz Yisrael and in chutz la'aretz. Okay, till there. So what do we see from there? Says the Gemara now, Mida Omar Abaye, man Tana the Poleg Alei de Rabbi Eliezer. Now since Abaye said, who's the Tana that argues Rabbi Eliezer? Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel argues Rabbi Eliezer. So what did Rabbi Shmuel say? That Moish V'Seichem means only in Eretz Yisrael after they conquered and settled the land. And so he's arguing with Rabbi Eliezer. So Shema Minah, Rabbi Eliezer l'chumre Poleg. So Rabbi Eliezer, which disagrees, holds Moish V'Seichem means everywhere in the whole world. So he's being stringent about the Isra of Chadash that it applies all over. This is a clear raya that the Pshat in our Mishnah is Rabbi Eliezer is the one that says that Chodesh is all over in the world. That would mean that Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Kiva are of this opinion, and the Tanakama here argues. Okay, now the Gemara has a side question here on this Braisa of Rabbi Shmuel. We just quoted Rabbi Shmuel learned out from the Parsha of Nesachim that there's a rule. Whenever the Torah says Moish V'Seichem, it doesn't mean all over in the world. It means in Eretz Yisrael after they conquered and settled. Says the Gemara, Mechdi, Rabbi Shmuel Eichekoya Nesachim. Rabbi Shmuel is learning this out from the pasuk that it says by Nesachim. But by Nesachim, over here, by the Nesachim, Bia, over there, the Torah doesn't just use the term Moish V'Seichem. It says Bia u'Moshe Ksiv Bahu. It says both the term Bia and Moshe. As I mentioned before, it actually brings the pasuk. The pasuk says Ki Savoyu al Eretz Moish V'Seichem. So it says Tavoyu and Moshe V'Seichem. So how can you learn from here that the rule applies to every time it says Moshe V'Seichem, even when it does not say the term Bia? Now this is not a question on what the Gemara was saying before regarding Chodosh, because by Chodosh the Torah does use both expressions. It also uses the term Bia and Moshavos. So it's not a question of that. But the Gemara wants to know, how could this become a rule to every single place, even if it does not say the term Bia? So the Gemara says, you're right, it's not a rule for every place where it says Moshav. This is what Rabbi Shmuel is saying. Lilamid. From the Sachim we learn out. Shekol makom shenema Bia u'Moshav. If the Torah writes both expressions, when you come to Eretz Yisrael and when you settle, then enei alalach Yerusha v'yeshiva. What the Torah is saying is, you come into the land and you settle the land. Divrei Rabbi Shmuel. But true, in a place where it just says Moshe V'Seichem, it doesn't mean only in Eretz Yisrael. Says the Gemara, but if that's what Rabbi Shmuel is saying, Ihachi, Malay Rabbi Kiva, Harei Shabbos Shenema by Moshavos. Rabbi Kiva asks the question that by Shabbos it says the term Moshavos, and we see that the mitzvah of Shabbos is all over in the world. Malay Shabbos Kal V'Chaimer. And Rabbi Shmuel answers that question that Shabbos is a Kal V'Chaimer. Why does he have to bring a Kal V'Chaimer? Name Rabbi Shmuel should answer him, you misunderstood me. Anna Bia U'Moshav Kamina. I'm saying that only if the Torah writes both expressions, Kisavoyu and Moshe V'Seichem, then it means in Eretz Yisrael. Shabbos, it just says Le'Savaru Eish B'chol Moshe V'Seichem, doesn't say Kisavoyu. So over there it's not Eretz Yisrael. So the Gemara answers, you're right. Choda v'oid ka'amalei. Rabbi Shmuel is telling Rabbi Kiva one and a second answer. Choda, one answer is, like we said, Anna Bia U'Moshav Kamina. My rule that Moshe V'Seichem means only Eretz Yisrael is only if it says both, Bia and Moshav. Besides that, the Shabbos and by Meshavis, you're arguing that Shabbos uses the term Meshavis in the Torah, so it's only in Eretz Yisrael. Shabbos Kavachayme. Shabbos is different. Shabbos is a Kavachayme that it should be noyig all over in the world. Now the Gemara explains what's the basis of the machlokes of Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva, how to learn the pshat and the pasuk of Moshe V'Seichem that it says by Nesachim. B'mai kamiflagi, what are they arguing about? The argument here is based on B'kirvu Nesachim B'midbar Kamiflagi, whether the Yidden had an obligation when they bring the karbanis to pour the Nesachim as well or not. Now Rashi just clarifies that this is not an argument regarding Nesachim for a carbon tzibur, but this is an argument whether a Yachid would have to bring Nesachim in the Midbar. Rabbi Shmuel saw what Rabbi Shmuel says, like Kirvu Nesachim B'midbar. There was no Nesachim brought in the Midbar, not for the Yachid, that means. No Nesachim for a Yachid. So therefore Rabbi Shmuel says, when the Pasuk is saying that they come into Eretz Yisrael, so what is the Pasuk over here coming to say? When they come into Eretz Yisrael, now the Chiddush over here is that in Eretz Yisrael, it's brought La'acha, Yerusha, V'Yeshiva, then the mitzvah of Nesachim again. They really had already the mitzvah of Nesachim in the Midbar for a Tzibur, but not for a Yachid. Now after they came into Eretz Yisrael, then every carbon Yachid, on a Bamas Tzibur, that is. When you have a proper Bamas Tzibur, every Yachid will have to bring Nesachim for his carbon Yachid. So that's the pshat over here. When they were in the Midbar, there was no Nesachim for a Yachid. Therefore, Moshe V'Seichem is Mechadish. It's only in Eretz Yisrael. Only when they came to Eretz Yisrael began the mitzvah of Nesachim for a carbon Yachid. But that's only La'acha Yerusha V'Yeshiva, after they finished settling the whole land. That's Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Kiva says, Kirvu Nesachim B'midbar. The Nesachim, they already had the mitzvah in the Midbar that Nesachim is being brought over there. So what is the pasuk over here coming to say in Eretz Yisrael, that when they come to Eretz Yisrael, that they have the mitzvah to bring the Nesachim only once they have a proper bama, like they call it Mishkan Shiloh, Yerushalayim, that only then the Nesachim applies? It can't be, because they already had the mitzvah of Nesachim from before. So the only chiddush that it's coming to say over here is that once they come into Eretz Yisrael, the mitzvah of Nesachim will apply wherever you are. Not only in a proper Mishkan, like when they were in the Midbar, or Mishkan Shiloh, or Yerushalayim, but now the Pasuk is saying, Moshe V'Seichem, that wherever you are, even when you have a bama of a Yachid, and you want to bring a carbon yourself, you have to bring the Nesachim. That was the chiddush when they came into Eretz Yisrael. Okay, the Gemara now goes back to the pshat that Rabbi Shmuel said. How did we conclude before? What was Rabbi Shmuel's rule? If the Torah uses a term regarding a mitzvah, it says Bia and Moshav, then we know it means only in Eretz Yisrael. So on this Abai said, Hi Tana de Rabbi Shmuel, what the rule we learned here from this Tana that taught by Rabbi Shmuel, Mapik me'idach Tana de Rabbi Shmuel. He excludes or he disagrees with another Tana that taught by Rabbi Shmuel different. The Tana de Rabbi Shmuel, because we learned what a Tana said by Rabbi Shmuel. Hoyol v'nemru biyes b'Torah stam. So he taught as follows. Since we see the Torah says different mitzvahs when you come to Eretz Yisrael, and then by one of the mitzvahs, the Torah says it's la'acha yerusha v'yeshiva, that the mitzvah applies after you settle, you inherit and settle the land. Avkol, this becomes a rule always la'acha yerusha v'yeshiva, that every time it says in the Torah the term moishvay seichem, it means after they settle the land. So Rashi says, what we'll see soon in the Gemara as well. What mitzvah is he saying here that we see that the Torah says it's only after Yerusha v'Yeshiva? This refers to the mitzvah of the Melech. It says v'Yirishta v'Yeshavta ba asima alai Melech. So over here, what this Tana is basically saying is that this rule, Rabbi Shmuel said, is not only when it says both terms, bia and moishav, but every time it says in the Torah the term bia, that this is a mitzvah that applies when you come to Eretz Yisrael. Automatically it means in Eretz Yisrael dafka, and it means after you settle the land. So this is a different rule. The word bi itself always means la'acha yerusha v'yeshiva. Now v'idach, the other Tana Rabbi Shmuel that said that that's not true. It has to say both the term of bia and moishav, like Moshe Seichem. So Mishum, he says that we can't learn out from Melech that this is true everywhere else, because Mishum to have a Melech, this parsha that I just mentioned that it says by the Melech, Bikurim, and there's another place in the Torah by Bikurim, the beginning of Parshas Kisavai, right? It says Kisavai, and then it says V'yirishta v'yeshafta, that the mitzvah of Bikurim is only after you settle the land. So these are Shnei Ksuvim Abam Kechot. These are two psukim that say the term Bia, and the Torah spells out that it's only after you settle the land. And the rule is V'chol Shnei Ksuvim Abam Kechot Ein Melamden. If the Torah repeats the same thing twice, why is it repeating it? To let you know that it's only by then, and you can't learn out anywhere else. So therefore, he didn't hold to this rule that you could say now that any time the Torah says bia, it means after you settle the land. It's only if it writes bia and moishav, like that. That's what this Tana, the way Rabbi Shmuel held. Now, v'idach, however, here the Tana that says that you could learn out from these two places. How can you learn out from here if it's shnei ksuvim abam kechad? He'll tell you tzrichi. The reason the Torah repeats it here, it's not an indication that you can't learn out to anywhere else, but the Torah had to repeat it by both of them. If the Torah would only say regarding a king that the mitzvah applies after they settle the land, and it would not tell me regarding bikurim, I would say bikurim the kamishani la'alter. I would say maybe bikurim is different. Bikurim, the trees grow and you have the bikurim immediately, even before the 14 years that they settle the land. So maybe you should be chayiv bikurim right away. So the Torah has to write separately regarding bikurim that it's only la'acha yerusha v'yeshiva. On the other hand, because of Bikurim, if it would only say by Bikurim, only after you settle the land, that v'lo because of Melech, and it would not say that the king, that you appoint the king only later on after you settle. Havamina Melech, the Darkil Chabesh, the king is the one that he conquers the land. So maybe you should have to appoint a king right away, so he should help them conquer and settle the land. La'alter. Okay, so therefore, the Torah had to write that both the king and Bikurim is a mitzvah that only applies after they fully conquer and settle the land. So if it is a tzrichase here, if it's needed both of them, it's not shnei ksuvim habam kechad ein melamden. You could learn from here as a rule everywhere else that when the Torah writes bia, it means after they settle the land. Ve'idach, but the other Tana the Rabbi Shmuel says, Nichtev Rachmana Melech, let the Torah write this halacha that it's after the land is settled, only regarding the king, v'loi by bikurim, and it's not necessary to say it by bikurim as well. And v'ana amena, and I will say, Ma Melech de lekavish. A king, which is much more needed right away when they come into Eretz Yisrael. You need a king to help them conquer the land. La'acha Yerusha v'yeshiva, but nevertheless, the Torah says that the mitzvah to appoint the king is only after they settle the land. Bikurim like kol shekain. For sure, bikurim we delay till later. So the Gemara now sort of drops the svara it said before. Before the Gemara said a svara that by bikurim there's also a certain svara that it should be right away, that you don't have by a king because you have anah right away. But the Gemara drops that svara now. So therefore, there's no tzrichas here. Ve'idach, but the other one will tell you, even if you don't hold of this point that Bikurim has hana right away, ikasav hachi, if the Torah would only write by a melech that you delay it until later, so I wouldn't make the kavachayim and say that Bikurim is delayed. I would say hava mine midi dahave achala. I would actually compare Bikurim to the mitzvah of Chala. Now Chala is unique. That's something that no one disagrees about. Rashi here brings the drasha that it says in the Sifri, that by Chala it says in the Torah, Bivoy Achem, which means you chayiv in the mitzvah right away when you come into Eretz Yisrael. So maybe I would compare Bikurim to Chala. They're similar mitzvahs. Kamash Malam, that's why the Torah had to write it by both, so it's not considered to be Shnei Ksuvim, and therefore you'll learn from here a rule, whenever the Torah writes the term Biyah, It means that they're chayiv in the mitzvah only after they come into Eretz Yisrael and settle the land. Okay, now the Gemara comes back to answer another question here that comes up. Now that we concluded. If it's an obligation on the body of the person, so that's a mitzvah that's all over in the world. If so, there are different times where the Torah uses the term Moishav, and why does the Torah say this? By these kind of mitzvahs. Moishav, the Kosav Chamana Gabi Shabbos Lomali. By the Shabbos. Why does the Torah say Moish Vesechem if this is a mitzvah that's all over in the world? So the Gemara answers, it's the term Moish Vesechem there is needed. I would think, because the mitzvah of Shabbos is written in the Torah together with the other Yomim Tovim to buy Kiddush Kim Mayadais. Maybe Bezdin should have to sanctify it, just like when it comes to the other Yomim Tovim, the Bezdin has to sanctify the new month, and that's what sets the day of the Yontif. So maybe over here as well, I should say that Bezdin has to do the same. Okay? So that's been negaya to, so therefore the Torah has to write Kamash Malon Moishav. So therefore the Kamash Malon that is, so therefore the Torah writes that the mitzvah applies all over in Eretz Yisrael. Doesn't make a difference if Bezdin sanctified it or not. Okay, Vaiter says the Gemara, Moishav the Kosav Rachmana Gabi Chayla V'dam. The Torah also uses the term Moishav when it comes to the Isser of eating the forbidden fats and the blood. Why does the Torah write Mishvesechem over there if this is a mitzvah that's all over in the world? Says the Gemara over here as well, it's the because I would think to say, oh, you'll be in Yana, the Karbanis Ksivi in the Torah, when it says this Isser, it says it together with the mitzvah of Karbanis. I would maybe think, Bisman Deka Karbon Nitzar, Chele V'dam. The Isser of Chele V'dam is in the time when you could bring Karbanis. Bisman Deleka Karbon Loy, when you can bring Karbanis, maybe in that time period, this doesn't apply. Kamash Malon, Moishav, so the Torah is saying, that this Isser applies in every generation in all your dwellings. Again, the third thing, Moshe the Koser Rachmana Gabi Matzah Marer Lamali. Why does it say in the Torah by Matzah Marer B'chol Moshe V'Seichem Teichel Matzahs? If it's all over in the world, what's the term Moshe V'Seichem coming to teach? Answers the Gemara, it's the Chsal Kedai Techamina, because I would think to say, Hoyel V'Ksiv by Matzah Marer, it says, Al Matzahs U'Meroirim Yoichluhu, which is going on the Carbon Pesach. You eat the Carbon Pesach together with Matzah and Marer. So maybe I would say Bisman Dike Pesach in. When there's a chiyuv of Carbon Pesach, so then you eat matzah marer as well. Bisman deleka Pesach loy. When there's no Pesach, then there should be no mitzvah of matzah marer. Kamash malon. Therefore, it says even if there's no Pesach, there's still a matzah and marer. From here, from this Gemara, you actually also see that the mitzvah of marer is minat Torah even when there's no Pesach. Not bisman hazeh, but bisman shebeis hamikdash kayim. When you could bring a Carbon Pesach. But even if you're not bringing the Carbon Pesach, there's still a mitzvah of Marer. The Rebbe brings this Gemara in the Haggadah, that from here you see that there's a mitzvah of Marer then as well. Okay, further the Gemara asks, Biyeh the Kasav Rachmaniga b'tfilin u'petach hamayr. This is what the whole Gemara began with, that in Ki Yiviyacha, say every day in the Tefillin, Ki Yiviyacha, that it says by Tefillin and in the same parsha Petach hamayr. Lamali. Why is the Torah saying when you come to Eretz Yisrael, if these are mitzvahs that are even in Chutz La'aretz? So here the Gemara says, so he taught as follows, Asay mitzvazu, when the Torah is saying, over here, the term of biyah, it's saying, fulfill this mitzvah, shebishvilo tikonis la'aretz. That is schar, for fulfilling this mitzvah, you'll be zeiche to enter into Eretz Yisrael. But of course, it's a mitzvah that applies everywhere in the world.